folks. I'm back to this after more than 2 years in terms of renewables. You know, IRENA, the International Renewable Energy Agency under the UN, puts out these annual reports on renewables, state of the renewables, and I just recorded the 2022 one a couple of years ago, but I wanted to update it with this in 2024. So I'm recording this in 2025, but this is renewables in 2024, which just came out in April of 2025. 5 key facts behind a record-breaking year. What made it such a record-breaking year? We'll just quickly run through some graphs. Record high renewable energy capacity additions in 2024. So you can see how many non-renewables were added as a percentage of total or absolute numbers in terms of gigawatts per year, and renewables. So you can see from 2014 onwards, the new additions have been always higher in terms of renewables, except for maybe in pretty much all years. And by 2024, you had a record-breaking year in terms of 91% of the renewable energy capacity addition of the total. So renewable share of annual power capacity expansion was 91% for renewables in 2024 compared to 85% in 23 and 80% for the years 2020 through 2022 when we went through COVID. So this was 582 gigawatts in 2024 in terms of additional capacity expansion. That's remarkable. So it's optimistic. You can always say we are not moving fast enough for hitting net zero by 2050, etc. But the fact is, as long as you are meeting new demands with renewables, you are in a good position to phase out fossil fuels, especially coal. So the estimates are that by 2027, maybe solar will cross over coal in terms of the peak power producers globally. So this is renewables account for more than 92% of total power expansion in 2024, which is what we said here. And you are looking at percentages, so you can see increase in non-renewables versus increase in renewables and the renewable share. So the renewable shares have remained somewhat flat through pre-COVID to COVID years, but went up a little bit during 23-24. Any good news is good, good enough for now, but obviously we can always accelerate. So we said this number already, 585 gigawatts added in 2024 in terms of expansion. Overall, renewables accounted for 92.5% of total power capacity expansion in 2024. Repeating again, up from 85.8% in 2023. Their share in the world's total installed power capacity rose from 43% to 46.4% during the same period. So the world's total installed power capacity rose close to 50%, which is still ways to go in terms of decarbonization, but this still reflects both accelerated adoption of renewable energy and a slowdown in raw non-renewable capacity additions, which is very critical because you don't get locked in to fossil fuels in that case. A trend further driven by the large net decommissioning of fossil fuel power plants in several regions, which is excellent news. Solar and wind remained key to this momentum, jointly accounting for 96.6% of net renewable energy expansion. So here, solar power takes the lead. I'm getting some noise here, which is hopefully nothing serious. So 42% is addition in solar, 25% in wind, hydropower 29%, and others 4%. So hydropower, obviously wind, solar, all are subject to climate change impact, so one has to be careful. Countries like Switzerland are losing, for example, glaciers very fast, and the stream flow increases, and in that case they are hoping to produce more hydropower and sell it off since they can't really stop the glacier melt and so on. Asia dominates in this game, especially China. Regional disparities, of course, persist. Renewable power capacity by region and additions in 2024 North America is 573 gigawatts, so up by about 46 gigawatt in 2024. Central America and the Caribbean, about 19 gigawatts, and South America, 313 gigawatts. Europe, 849 gigawatts, up 70.1 gigawatt in 2024. US is facing some uncertainties because of the current administration, so hopefully it won't be too serious in terms of, regressing on the progress, but nonetheless, Africa 67, not bad. Middle East 40, it is especially important since all the oil producers sit here, most of them, majority of them. Eurasia 131, Asia 2,382 gigawatts. India and China are doing this, but we'll see some numbers, China versus rest of the world when we go back to the 2022 report. I'm just adding this couple of years later, as I said. Oceania added 74 gigawatts in 2024. Progress still falls short to reach the 2030 tripling target that is needed for hitting 2050 net zero target. Annual growth rate of renewable installed capacity in percentages. Progress rate times 3 required by 2030 is still up here. We are getting close in 2024, hopefully by 26-27, which is where the next 5-year projection was from 2022. So hopefully we'll hit 16.1, which is the triple from whatever baseline that was chosen for that. Okay? Despite a record growth rate of 15.1% in 2024, progress still falls short of the 11.2 terawatts needed to align with the global goal to triple installed renewable capacity by 2030. If the current growth rate persists, the world will be short approximately 0.8 terawatts by 2030. Achieving the target now requires an annual growth rate of 16.6% until 2030. So we need 16.6% per year till 2030 to hit this target here by 2030. Okay, boosting the annual growth rate requires more ambitious national targets. IRENA has consistently called for clear, quantifiable renewable energy targets. In the next round of the nationally determined contributions, countries have revised them. They will need revisions again to stay on target for net zero global targets of 2050, let's say. To that end, the agency continues to support its members in enhancing and implementing their NDCs in the energy sector, which is doing better than many other sectors, even though a report that just came out that said deforestation has slowed down, and there have been gains in forest cover in some countries like India. But we obviously have to stay on top of reducing deforestation and increasing afforestation, along with deployment of renewables, phasing out fossil fuels, especially coal. If coal remains king for much longer, then that's going to be a problem anyways for decarbonization. And interestingly, with all the noise that's going on in the US still exports I think close to maybe 100 million tons of coal, and India and China are big buyers of US coal. So, this funny tariff game is playing out, but obviously there are many details that you don't hear about unless you go digging for them, right? So US can be seen as reducing its emissions, but it's selling coal, and it imports a lot of manufactured goods from elsewhere. So where do you account the emissions? So these are all tricky things we have to deal with anyways, but nonetheless, keeping in mind that mitigation, climate mitigation is a global target. Everybody has to do their part. And despite the political perturbations, conflicts, etc., there will always be disruptions to energy markets, like the Russian invasion of Ukraine, creating perturbations in gas supplies, and European song and dance about how to count LPGs, natural gas, as a low-emission fossil fuel, as opposed to just phasing it out, etc. So there will always be issues, but nonetheless, there's always good news on the renewables front, simply because economically it's now much more feasible and viable and profitable to move to solar and wind, especially to ensure one's own energy independence, energy security, which is a big driver for countries like India and China. If they want to continue their economic growth at 7 to 10% annual growth rates, then they really need to put a lot of efforts into deploying renewables, because their dependence on fossil fuel makes them very vulnerable in terms of energy required for economic growth. So they definitely will continue that trend for a while. Okay, let's leave it here.